web developer. He was a member of the team building the first B2C e-commerce websites for Thomson Multimedia, owner of RCA.com, GEelectronics.com, and the Lyra.com brands. He handled web development, server and network infrastructure, and back-end integration with mainframe ERP system, which is where I came in because I had the mainframe ERP system. So with that, Aaron, I'm going to toss it over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. That's great. Trip down memory lane. You know, I really appreciate Apple for doing so well and not allowing RCA Lyra to become like the dominant MP3 player out there, beating out the iPod. Because if that happened, I'd probably still be at Thomson. But so things worked out for all of us, I guess. So that's fantastic. All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. So now I've gone beyond Thomson. So now I'm the CEO of Project Brilliant, and we're an agile coaching training consulting company here in Indianapolis. And so I'm going to introduce the panelists here in a little bit, but I'm just going to sort of set the stage with some content first, and then we'll go and introduce the panelists and dive into some discussion. So to lead off here, I just want to set some context for agile leadership and what that means, because we're talking to some leaders that are very agile minded. So for the rest of us, understanding what that means and sort of where we've come from to get to that point. So for those that are in Zoom, what you might want to do at this point is go to the speaker view. So there's a gallery view, which is the titles of everyone, then there's a speaker view. So if you go to speaker view, you can see a little bit better what I'm going to draw back here. Maybe take some notes for yourself as well. So to start with here, I've got two pictures that I'm going to sort of put together for us. First one here about sort of the history of management, sort of where we've come from with management from the start here. So the vertical axis here is speed and complexity of work. So pretty self-explanatory there. And across the bottom here, time. So starting back in the early 1900s is where we usually think about like serious management concepts that have driven most of the 19th century started. And so people were coming off farms into cities and factories and things like that. And you know, this is where things started to get bigger, Ford factories and things like that. And there was this guy named Frederick Taylor. If you don't know Frederick Taylor, he's very famous for scientific management. And what he did was really revolutionary at the time, which was basically start measuring performance. So we call this Taylorism. And his concepts basically revolved around command and control. And so command and control and measurement. So scientific management. And what that looked like was, you know, someone's basically out there like shoveling coal into a furnace. He would measure how many shovels of coals they could take in an hour and then do the math and figure out how much should happen every day and then start performance managing everyone based on that number. And so that worked pretty well. So the companies that he worked with started to dominate the market, right? They started doing really well. The management folks started looking at performance and started to measure all their people against that sort of baseline and started to improve things, right? Pretty novel for the time, pretty revolutionary, and it worked pretty well with manual labor. So as we advanced from the 1900s into the 50s, the lean movement began. This is what we call management 2.0 here. And the difference here between what was happening with the early stages here in the 1900s into the lean movement in the 50s was a couple things. So one is people became more educated. They weren't just folks that had come in, off farms into the cities, low education, low skilled. There's a couple generations there where they started to improve their education, started to build skills and things like that. And the difference here, what started to happen in the lean movement then was we actually started to trust people to make decisions. Back here in the Frederick Taylor times in the early 1900s, we couldn't really trust people to make decisions because they didn't know what to do, right? They weren't skilled, they weren't educated, that kind of stuff. And so as we approach the 50s then, the lean movement and ideas of trusting your employees to make decisions at their workstation. So you've got someone there, like building cars, we're putting on steering wheels, we're putting on tires, tightening bolts, things like that. And if they find a problem at their station, we trusted them well enough that they could pull the lever, stop the line, and fix the problem because they understood what was going on at enough of a detail level that they could address quality. So we started to build trust and address quality problems on the site there with those employees. And so the evolution of management here from basic command and control evolved to being able to trust your employees to make decisions at a localized level. So that's pretty revolutionary kind of stuff, right? And it allows you to start expanding your capability then where the manager doesn't have to do everything, right? They don't have to command and control every situation and micromanage people to death. And so as we start to evolve here, good things are happening, right? We're becoming more productive. We're starting to trust people at those lower levels to be able to make decisions appropriately and effectively. And so as speed and complexity of work continues to increase on an exponential curve here, now we get into management 3.0, and this is where things like Agile have started to emerge. And part of the reason for that is that things have become very complex and things are moving very fast. We're no longer dealing with shoveling coal, we're dealing with knowledge workers. And so that's a very different thing than doing manual labor. And the unfortunate part is a lot of management practices haven't kept up. We're still managing knowledge workers over here the same way we manage people coming off farms and shoveling coal and tightening screws, right? And so this idea of Agile, the movement here, focuses much more on cross-functional teams, cross-functional, and the idea of teams. And where we've evolved to, things are moving so fast and are so complex that managers can't keep their arms around everything anymore, right? Even in the case in the lean movement, they probably could, but they're starting to delegate responsibility and finding it was more effective. But at this point, there's no way individual managers, no individual person can keep up with everything fast enough to make the right decisions at the right time to keep things rolling in an effective way. And so what we really have to do is get cross-functional teams with diverse experiences, diverse backgrounds, and capabilities that they can actually make decisions on the spot. And they're most likely making better decisions than someone that's not directly involved with the work. And so as we've evolved into that kind of space of knowledge work and really getting cross-functional effective teamwork, management needs to start evolving to a place where they can start managing that effectively. And that's a bit of what we want to talk about tonight is, we all know a lot of things that have happened here over the past 6-9 months where management has started to change their thinking and sometimes being forced to in terms of being able to respond. And so that's what we'll get into a little bit later here tonight. But so just conceptually, this is sort of how management has, or how work and complexity has evolved over time. And what we're looking for is, of course, managers to start following suit and start evolving their capabilities to be able to deal with the situation and manage it appropriately. So with that, let me talk about just a simple leadership model here that we use quite a bit at Project Brilliant in our leadership classes. And I think we'll find some good information here to talk about as well tonight. So as we think about agile leadership development, we use a model called leadership agility and really has 3 main stages here. There's a few more nuances to it that we won't worry about for tonight, but we'll just go with the basic version for tonight. And so usually the first stop on the management journey for leaders sort of stepping into their first role as managers, what we call the expert manager, expert leader. And so the basic idea here is that going into management, you're most likely an expert in something, and you get promoted into a position where you're managing people that are in that role. So for example, pretty common for IT folks, you're a developer, you get promoted into development manager, right? So then you're managing the people who do development. And you sort of draw your street cred from the ability to know how to do that job. You're managing developers, you used to do that job, you know how it's supposed to go, you have expertise there, right? And so the focus though, oftentimes is very tactical, right? We're looking at the sort of day-to-day, work. Usually the time horizon we're looking at is maybe in terms of like weeks or less, right? We're just trying to get the job done today, solve the problem, current state kind of stuff. And so the focus here is often on doing. There's a big focus on doing the work and sort of managing at that level of making sure the work gets done properly. So very tactical kind of approach and focus on just getting the work done. Okay, so the expert leader there. And so what we're looking for is to, of course, grow capabilities so that we can become more agile and deal with the speed and complexity of change and diverse teams and things like that. So going beyond the expert is very just tactical work focused into this next level, which we call the achiever. And as you build capabilities here, you're not losing the ability to be the expert, you're building on top of it, sort of like a Russian nesting doll. So you're building another layer of capability around that. And we call that the achiever leader. And so the achiever leader, what's happening here is we're moving from just doing the work into the ability to lead people. So the focus here going from doing to leading. And what we're looking at here is really getting into things like projects and programs, those kind of concepts where we need someone to sort of set a vision of what we're trying to accomplish, set a goal out there, and then start getting people lined up to achieve that goal. So getting the right people on the seats in the bus to go out and achieve that goal that I've set out. And so a lot of that ends up being, sort of pitching the goal, helping everyone understand why it's important and helping us understand how to contribute. And so the focus here then becomes things like projects. So beyond just the individual pieces of work, and becomes more strategic. So we're trying to line up the pieces. And so this is what most organizations' performance management systems are designed to create, is achiever leaders. We're trying to find the people that can rally the troops, give the pitch, sell it, all that kind of stuff, achieve buy-in from other people so we can all get lined up and try to achieve the bigger goal. And so that's a pretty common thing. Most organizations, especially traditional organizations, are seeking out these people in the organization to try to promote them into positions of authority to try to get people aligned. So that's a good thing, right? We're going from just tactical experts to strategic thinkers that are trying to achieve bigger goals. The challenge here, though, is that there's a limiting factor. And often that limiting factor is we're sort of trying to achieve goals and projects, but we're not looking past that. And so sometimes what happens is we align everything to achieve the goal, but we're not thinking beyond that. We achieve the goal and then things just sort of collapse behind us because that leader gets promoted to the next position and all the stuff they had built behind them isn't really lasting and stable. And so there's a limiting factor here. We're able to achieve the mission, but we kind of lose the war sometimes. And so what we're looking for is the next evolution of leaders, what we call catalyst leaders. So leaders that are looking at a bit bigger picture, longer range, trying to set the situation up for success, not just achieve the goal over the next year or two, but try to achieve lasting success. And so this idea of catalyst leadership really going beyond tactical and strategic to visionary. So looking at longer term vision and the kinds of work they're dealing with, not just tactical work every day or during the week, not just projects that might last for 6 months or a year or two, but it's the longer term things like organizational culture. So organizational culture, trying to set us up for long-term success. So it's not just about achieving the current goal, it's about, can we achieve goals forever, right? So can we set ourselves up for a situation where it can become adaptable to whatever comes at us? And so as we think about this, we're going from the doing to leading, which is good, but there's another thing above this, which is coaching. And so as we think about that, it's not just leading people and trying to get buy-in, it's trying to help people help themselves. And so trying to evolve leaders into this mindset of being coaches. And that's going to allow us all to become more effective because now we're challenging everyone to do the best they can to work together and to try to achieve lasting success. And so as we think about this growth and development here, the different aspects of it that help us grow this cone out, just real quick, these three things. One is the time horizon that we're looking at. So time horizon, of course, the expert leader is looking at sort of the here and now. The achiever leader looking at a little bit longer range in terms of programs and projects, and the catalyst leader looking out vision out into the future, way out there, making sure we're looking at very long-term kind of view of the world. So time horizon, their view of the system is another aspect. And we say system, what I mean is the system of the organization. So like the company, right? So not IT systems, but the bigger picture about the organization. And so the view of the system here of the expert, of course, is probably my team. The achiever is probably my program or my department or my business unit. The catalyst leader is looking at the whole company and beyond that. And so as you think about what it takes to be successful as an organization, it's not just about your company. There's a larger ecosystem which you play. Vendors, partners, clients, customers, those kind of things all play into our success. And so the catalyst leader is going beyond our four walls out into the world to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success across the board, right? And then the last thing, and probably the most important one, gets into self-awareness. And so this is pretty important, where the leader themselves starts to recognize what they're doing, how they can contribute, and how they can help people do their best. And so here's the expert, of course, sort of looking at, how do I help someone get the work done today? I might micromanage them, I might shove them out of the way from the keyboard so I can just solve the problem for them, stuff like that. The achiever leader, of course, we're trying to help people achieve my outcome, my goal that I'm trying to achieve. But if you have a different goal, not so interested in that, right? But the catalyst, of course, is looking at the bigger, broader view and self-aware that, you know what, I may not have the best ideas myself, right? I might be wrong. And so I need to involve other people and get them in the game here so we can achieve the best outcomes and best results possible overall. And so as we think about this, trying to evolve to this catalyst kind of leadership, it's very helpful, of course, if our organization is trying to go agile, to have these kind of leaders, or at least starting to think more in this direction, because we're more likely to be successful in the long run and be able to get more people involved in that sort of agile-minded management approach to allow us to be successful in dealing with complexity and the speed of change in the world. So with that bit of background here, I just want to introduce our panelists and start talking about some of the things that we're dealing with here about complexity and change. All the things that have happened with COVID and things like that over the past 6 to 9 months, plus everything else that would normally happen. So why don't I kick it off here? So I'm going to just ask each of the panelists to give themselves a brief introduction to let everyone know who you are. So why don't I start with Tiffany?
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, I'm Tiffany Trusty. I am a digital product manager with Eli Lilly. Have been there for 3 years developing software as a medical device and have learned so much. Prior to Lilly, I had a 20-year career in software product development with such great big companies like Motorola Public Safety and a bunch of amazing small companies supporting the Indianapolis entrepreneurs here through my own company, Trusty Applications. Spent some time with our great nonprofit, 1150 Academy, helping to grow more talent in our community. And of course, a 10-year-long relationship with Women in High Tech because I share their passion for diversity in STEM.
That's fantastic. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you.
All right. Next on my screen is Mike Loggins, coming to us from Florida.
Hello. Yeah. From a distant land today. So, no, I'm Mike Loggins. I'm the Global Vice President of IT for SMC. Been lucky enough to be at SMC and grown up from a doer and very low management all the way up to where I am now, about 15 years now at this point. I've always loved the opportunity to meet with everyone on the panel and everyone in our community, and I'm glad to be here to share with you today.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome. Next up, Nirav.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nirav Shah. I am the Vice President of IT here at Republic Airways. I've been here just less than 3 years. And the last 6 to 9 months, just like everybody else, I've got a leadership crash course, specifically being in an airline industry. So it's been a fun journey. Happy to be here and happy to be part of this great group here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nirav. Next up on my screen is Tracy.
Thanks, Aaron. So I'm Tracy Barnes. I am the CIO here at the state of Indiana. I've been in this position for about 7 months now. Major background, started in technology around the ERP space, like we talked about earlier with these guys on their mainframe ERP activities. But have done consulting and really a lot of ERP business led initiatives for a number of years, and then switched over and got into the policy side, working here in government. So just recently finished a 3.5-year stint as the chief of staff for a lieutenant governor before coming over to CIO to IoT at the state. So excited to be a part of this community, back in my world of technology, and really interested in hearing more of what we talk about tonight, and helping move our entire industry forward with the realization that things are moving way too quickly for us to keep standing still. So hopefully we can all take advantage of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. And I'm rooting for you, man. It's our tax dollars at work. So
that's right. You need me to succeed.
All right. And our last panelist here, Dave. Oh, we can't hear you, Dave. Can you hear him? Nope.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
There you go. Got it.
Okay, there. So Dave Breedlove with Cook Medical, the CIO. I've been with Cook for coming on 20 years in a few months. Had a number of different positions with Cook Medical and in different areas of the business, and over the last 5-6 years been involved in the IT area. Really excited about the topic this evening. We talk a lot about change management and how to react and how to respond, and everybody's gotten a crash course from that. And my grandmother, some people live and learn, and some people just live. So we've got a great opportunity to learn a lot and share some experience. So I look forward to the conversation this evening.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Welcome. All right. So I feel like I don't need to explain like the debate rules or anything. It's like we all understand how that's supposed to work by now, right? After watching TV. But anyway, so I'm just going to dive right in with some questions. I'll try to start off. I'll just ask someone to start off with each question. If anyone wants to chime in, feel welcome to as well. We'll try to keep things rolling just so we can get through, several different questions here for everyone's benefit. And I think we'll try to save, as Doug said, we'll save some time at the end for audience questions as well, if we can. So first question is gonna be for Tiffany to start us off. Tiffany, how's work from home going for you and your organization? Lily, and what have been the advantages of it for you?
The hugest advantage is that folks are finally embracing it. I became a telecommuter back in the 90s before it was cool. I had to convince my company that they needed to try it, and I successfully did it for roughly 15 years. But I was typically the only one. I was the odd person, and I had to jump through a lot of hoops to remain relevant. I was like an entrepreneur within my own corporate position. And whenever I got to Lilly, roughly 3 years ago, it wasn't really the culture. You needed to be in the office. There was a lot of things happening in the hallways and at the water coolers. So when COVID hit and we were all forced to make this transition, I was delighted. And once people adjusted, they realized that productivity didn't slow down. And especially in our area of digital products, in some cases it sped up. And our CEO stood up and said, hey, this is going great. We'll make sure that we have some sort of culture shift to make this possible long term. So I can't wait to see what Lilly does and what Lilly takes from this in the new year.
Yeah, I can imagine being a global company. I mean, you guys have been dealing with this for a while, but still having the sort of centralized corporate structure. It's really interesting, I'm sure, to see how that's been evolving. It's great. Cool. Anyone else want to chime in on that, Dave?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been good, I think, is everybody's on the level playing field. And we've all been in experience where you're the one person or two people that are outside of a meeting room and you're trying to join virtually. It usually doesn't work really well. And since everyone is on the same playing field, from productivity and it makes it much more engaging that you can actually work in that way. We had recognized that before COVID hit, and we started having what we would call all remote meetings, where no two people could be in the same room, and everybody joined, so that we had people from Asia Pacific and from Europe joining, and that made the experience so much better. And now we see it on a corporate level, that it's making it very successful. The other thing that we're struggling with, and I think everyone is and Tiffany relate, is how do you maintain the culture of the organization and shift the culture to a different environment, that you're not having the lunches together and the bonding experiences that go beyond. And we're all looking forward to the environment that goes post-COVID, where we gather in a social atmosphere and have social events and meetings and so on, but from a remote environment. It's really changing it, the way we look at real estate, the way we look at organization structures, and how do we make this move forward, but keep that culture of the organization and find a different way to deliver it.
Yeah.
I had virtual lunch with my VP today.
Nice.
Awesome.
I was gonna just quickly add. I mean, the kind of extend on what Dave said there. My situation was a little bit different because it wasn't about maintaining the culture. I came in the day before the state shut down, and so I'm trying to, for one, understand the culture, most likely change the culture, and really figure out, who are these 450 people that I got to approve and help move their careers and lives and paths forward. So, it's been a major shift from a management and leadership perspective, and trying to come in and deal with, getting folks used to using videos and having the screens on to the videos on to do even, quick 10-minute catch-up meetings and things of that nature, like Tiffany talks about, just actually having a meal at your desk with the other person and not necessarily in person. But it's and from the government perspective, it has been, you take a step back and think about, we all are at some large organizations, right? As I got 7 million residents, I got 30,000 users, and this is supporting about 100 different state agencies that all have a very different mission. And so it can't be a one size fits all solution. And that's what's made it difficult, especially from a tech perspective, is I got to understand what I can do and how do I get my team to understand and recognize that there are different cultures in each of those agencies that need a different perspective, and we got to be able to provide that and support that. I mean, those different business units operate in different ways, and the needs that my Department of Child Services has with their caseworkers that are out and about in the fields trying to help make sure a child is not endangered is vastly different than my construction folks over in NDOT who are in heaven because there's nobody on the roads because everybody's stuck at home and trying to push things forward. So it's been a pretty significant impact on us and actually, making sure we figure out who we need to be and how we deliver that.
And I can imagine, Tracy, as you're going through trying to head towards this direction of more coaching, given that you're only on the job for like one day before COVID hit, it's tough because to coach, you gotta, know your people and understand them. So I imagine that's difficult trying to get to know them in this environment for the first time.
It's so much of, I think we all know this and probably take it for granted at some level is, it's that relationship, right? It's trust and even respect and being appointed into this role, there's that inherent kind of automatic respect that's there as a supervisor, as a subordinate type of a leader. But then there's all that trust that's earned. And that's from interactions and conversations. I can't pop by cubes and just kind of get to know people and see pictures on their desk and ask about their families, things of that nature. I can't pop over to other agencies and build across the state the footprint and relationship. And so it's been challenging for me in trying to figure out how do I reach the mass and make sure that folks do still feel that direct connection to their leader in order for them to trust and kind of commit to being a part of my strategy and my goals.
Yeah. Let's I'm going to take a little bit different direction with Mike Loggins here, who I know has a different scenario. So Mike, you want to tell us about what's been going on for you?
Yeah, so while everyone, at least from the US, while everyone was rushing to try to get home and work remotely, we were trying to ramp up and participate in trying to save the world. So SMC in itself does not typically operate in any kind of a life-sustaining application until COVID hit. And the same people we work with at the automotive industry and other industries that all were changing and shifting and innovating in the realm of respirators and ventilators and things like that. We were the product that they knew. So we had to shift our company as well to start selling into that market and start working with those engineers and building those life-sustaining systems to make sure that we could help with the shortage across the globe. So SMC in the US never went home. Our salespeople across the continent did, since all of our customers are home, they're at home right now and working with our customers remotely and the engineers remotely. But as far as the factory we have up in Noblesville, it's been running since like nothing happened. So we've taken all the precautions we can to make sure that we're as safe as we can be. And it's worked out so far pretty well. And we were able to continue working the way we were while we're starting to work on how to become make the next evolution change in the company as we come out of this.
That's great. Yeah, it's a bit different scenario where you guys stayed in the office and just trying to battle through it. That's great. So Nirav, airline industry, a little bit different as well. So I can imagine that change rates increasing for you guys there, and maybe different than what you expected coming into the year. So can you tell us a bit about what you've been seeing in your response to COVID?
Yes, so similar to everybody else, we definitely went home fairly quickly over a weekend, but very well done by the team, very well handled by most of us in the organization here. The big thing that came out of it was a culture transformation. So us being an airline and dispatching the planes from here, we had never imagined, we never had a culture to work at home. It was very traditional, a very traditional mindset as well. So when this happened, there was definitely a lot of panic, specifically to the leadership style that you call experts, that are very tactical. They weren't measuring outcomes per se, and they really struggled in the initial phases. But it gave the realization to the organization as people started delivering. And as you mentioned, we are dealing with a completely different workforce than we were dealing in 1990s, right? So for them to realize, hey, these are independent people. They know what the priorities are, and they are delivering results even better than they were when they were in the office. So once they got adjusted to that, we started seeing what we call in the agile world as self-sustained teams, more cross-functional collaboration. So we now went from we can never work at home to almost like, do we need this much real estate? When we're starting to bring people home, do we need everybody 5 days a week? Can we go into more of a hoteling system? So that was a quick shift over the last 6 months for us. Personally speaking, for me and the IT department, I had a strategic plan around moving us to more of an agile and having an agile mindset, not only within my leadership team, but entire IT department. And I can tell you right now, we were able to adopt a lot of the sense of urgency, things that we do from a ceremonies perspective, collaboration, cross-functional team. A lot of those things were done a lot quickly for us. And I'm ahead of my strategic plan, where I believe we would probably end the year where I thought we would be probably where we would be middle of next year. So that helped us a lot. Last thing I would say is, we did not sit and just think about what's in front of us. I always say, never let a good crisis go waste. For us, one of the big things that was brought to us was you cannot dispatch the planes from home. We have a very controlled FAA approved office here. Only restricted number of people can enter the space, and that's what's used to dispatch our planes. Well, throughout this process, what we did was we worked with FAA closely and have officially received a regulatory approval, even post-COVID, where we would now be able to dispatch our planes from homes. And that is big. That is the first time FAA has ever done. We were the first airline to get an approval for that. And that's an output of a crisis. Right? We wouldn't have done that. That wasn't a strategic plan in 2020. But when this happened, this was added to a strategic plan. So a lot of positive things have come out of this. I do believe a lot of expert leaders have at least gone to an achiever level, if not catalyst, and they have come to realization that the organization will continue to be successful if we get to the catalyst state.
That's great. Yeah, and I think a lot of the policy changes we're seeing, happen in the last 6-9 months. I can imagine, some of them will be temporary, but it sounds like you found a way to make some of those permanent as well, which sets you up for more possibilities, more success in this just rapidly changing environment that we're seeing. And so I'm kind of curious. Maybe back to Tiffany. So as we've seen things start to change, the pace of change start to increase. Do you see this slowing down? Do you see things changing for you in the future?
No, I mean, like I said, this was always possible, but embracing it and massively in the masses has been a huge catalyst for a lot of different things, not just working from home, but imagine software as a medical device. How many of you never had an e-visit with your doctor before COVID? Probably
I never did.
Fun, right? It was always a thing. You were always like, I'll just go in. I'll just go in. I'll just go in. Now we're doing it all virtual, and it's awesome. And so the doctors are seeing how many more patients they can see. I just don't think that level of embracing the possibilities is going to go away. And I think it's going to explode the future possibilities because of it.
I know, Dave, back to you. We've talked a little about being in pandemic mode. What does that look like post-pandemic for you guys at Cook?
That was one of the things that it was actually discussed during COVID, in the pandemic mode, making decisions, changing policies that would take months, if not years, to get changed. They were getting changed in hours and days. I remember one time in that conversation, the team. So part of the situation we were in, were we have a manufacturing facility, so we had people that were still on site and we had people that were off site, and how we were managing that. We had a crisis team that was working, leading the changes that we needed to get in place. I remember distinctly one of the leaders said, "Are we going to go back to the way it was? This has been good. How do we keep this cross-functional work going and bring more to it?" And I think that's what we've been working on and evolving towards, is how do we make it repeatable, scalable, and sustainable? You can't stay in crisis mode all the time, but how do you keep that mindset and that agility? So you're seeing the team make exerted efforts to make it where we can continue that cross-functional collaboration and a few set of focus priorities versus a massive set of many priorities, and that evolution coming where the old culture was still there, trying to pull it back, and we're trying to move it into, nope, this is the normal way we do business. I'd love to say it was easy and we got it figured out. We're work it, but you can what we always say is, we go back and say, how would we have done this when we were in pandemic mode? And that kind of resets it for everybody, going, yeah, we need to move towards action and more towards agility. So it's really, really helpful.
That's great. Tracy, we'll come back to you. And I know one thing we've talked about on the government side, there's a lot of advantages for private companies out there who can now draw from a pool of talent across the country and even across the globe, because people can be anywhere and just log in and connect via Zoom. What's that look like for you in the government, though?
It's not as easy, to kind of put it bluntly. We don't have that same flexibility. I mean, let's say, I won't say we don't. We do have that same flexibility, but we have to always give that extra consideration to the fact that what we are doing to pay employees is based on your tax dollars, right? So the 80 or so people on this webinar here, your paychecks and your purchases at stores and such, you want those tax dollars to be utilized in a way that are as effective and efficient as possible. And so, for us, it's still that, despite the fact that technology has moved at a rapid pace, not all citizens and consumers have kept up with that. And so because of that, we, as I said earlier, we have to deliver to a broad spectrum of constituents. And so we have to make sure that there's the digital government for folks that want to do their BMV registration on the phone. And I still got to make sure a branch is open because somebody wants to walk in and talk to somebody. So I got to have that broad perspective. And to do that, it's really a matter of making sure that we have the people in place to do that and to be able to provide that. And a lot of times, in a lot of places, taxpayers like to see people. They like to know that somebody physically is there. If you've ever been in downtown Indianapolis, we have those 3 big, nice buildings. And I don't think anyone would be happy if they were empty because everybody was working at home, despite the effectiveness, right? It's the view, it's the perception, it's what folks are seeing. It's the news cards out front showing an empty room and saying where your tax dollars going, despite the fact that you just sat on your phone and renewed your driver's license and didn't have a problem. And so because of that, our ability to recruit and continue sustaining a strong workforce, we're competing with all the private sector folks and trying to find other ways to help folks, make the transition to decide to come over to the public service angle. I think will always be the piece that we can win people on, to help them focus on their civic duty. You know, we're always challenged on funding and being able to pay salaries and rates that are comparative to the private sector. You know, we don't have a lot of the perks and benefits of being able to do significant volumes of travel and conferences and reimbursements for certifications and I mean, there's so many different things that the benefits package looks like that are challenging for us. And you know, the pandemic has, I think, just exacerbated it all because, you know, our fundings have went down significantly because of the tax implications. And so we're looking for ways to be more creative. You know, we just created a new role in our office to focus on strategic workforce development, so that we're actually looking a bit more long term with turnover, with retirements, with transitions, to kind of make sure we're having more of a pipeline prepared and ready, and that we're looking across the organization so that if and no offense to my mainframe folks here, but if somebody in mainframe retires or resigns, do I need to backfill that mainframe role, or am I better off in pulling that over and looking at someone on the cloud side or on the front end and shifting our workload and making sure we're progressing and moving forward. So, you know, it's inherent upon us to find more creative ways to remain a strong player and keep delivering the services we need to. This pandemic has not helped at all, and the workforce capabilities. You know, I would not hire a remote worker that wasn't a state of Indiana resident, right? I mean, it's something that I do think about, and we do give consideration to when we do have the candidate pool coming in, because again, these are tax dollars, and these are folks that are contributing back into this economy as opposed to contributing to another economy. And so it has to unfortunately become more than, are you really cool with Microsoft Azure? There's so many more other pieces that I end up starting to think about.
And Tracy, I remember talking about this with you before. Whenever I was elated that I was no longer tied to a 50-mile radius to go get my talent from, you said, well, that's just going to make it even harder for me. You can already suck up all the local talent. Now you've got your doors open to everybody. It's going to be so much harder for the public sector. But perhaps if there's more remote workers coming from all over the nation into a company like Lilly, the talent suck on the local community won't be so exaggerated.
So that's a very good point. So two things that come out of that. One is for areas where we have been able to identify some remote work and long-term remote work capabilities, I do now have more of a statewide pool instead of a local Indianapolis-centric pool, because I need a butt in the seat at one of the 3 buildings downtown. So that's a positive. And so there are some considerations, you know, down in Evansville, some good folks that may have migrated from another area, or to your point, some of the other large organizations that are bringing folks into the state on the development side, helping to create more attraction and value in the Indianapolis and Indiana area. The pool, we've not had any problems bringing people in, let me put it that way, but we have had to really, you know, engage with them to help them understand the value and the opportunity.
Yeah, different challenges, of course, in government, of course. Although I do want to give a shout out for mainframe, because I actually wrote, like during college, I had a programming class in COBOL, and I wrote an NCAA pool app in COBOL. So good stuff can happen there. So anyway, I want to come back to Mike. Mike, what's the next 6-12 months look like for you guys? You've been in the office, you've been, you know, really, doing a lot of great things to help with COVID. Building life-saving equipment, things like that. What's the next 6-12 months look like for you guys in SMC IT?
Well, I think as the rest of the world is starting to figure out what the new norm is going to look like, we're going to be on the. I think what we've seen from a business alignment standpoint is we've gone from being the people that have to get involved because they're the only ones who are allowed to give access to things, or we're the stopgap, we're the obstructionist, to I think they finally realize what we're trying to do, how we try to do it, and we're getting better at telling that story. So we're seeing probably in the next 6 to 12 months a lot more partnership with the business to drive different initiatives. There's a lot of innovative people in our business trying to figure out different ways to do things, especially now sales cycles are going to look different. Sales visits are going to look different. The way we're able to distribute our product is going to be different. The way our customers are going to be able to build their products is different. So we have to figure out how to make IT that strategic difference for the business, to make the salespeople more able to meet the needs of our customers, to have the better conversations, to make sure we continue to grow as a company, and then make sure, so we're also going to have to make sure that we find ways. Our engineering division is already a global division between China, Europe, Japan, and the US. So finding new ways for them now to really start leveraging each other to build better products, build them, design better products, design them faster, design them better, so we can get things to the market a lot quicker. Like I said, I think IT from that standpoint, we're now, it's changing, and and we have to earn it and we have to keep it, of we're the partner that's going to enable the business to do all these things, rather than the ones who just get in the way, and we're that kind of that last, obstacle to doing that. Now we're the ones who are helping drive it. So I think over the next 6 to 12 months, that's where the position that IT needs to take, and then we're going to have to work our tail off to keep it there.
Yeah, as we see, a lot of, I think, the feeling that business is more open. They're starting to understand the benefits of IT. It's not just, the cost center that a lot of organizations think of it as. It's an enabler and a strategic advantage potentially, right? So Nirav, I'm kind of curious for your thoughts on there. The business being more open to IT and the possibilities there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, and I think many of us, we have faced this where, IT never had seat at the table. For us in the last couple of years ago, they did make a strategic change, and they started understanding how critical IT is, more than just, having an internet connection 24/7 or getting your emails up and running. So that was good. But I think this event just showed clearly that IT plays a very, very critical role, not just running a headquarters, but making sure that our planes are taking off on time, getting to where it needs to be safely, securing, providing, contactless check-ins for our passengers. So we do believe we will continue this transition. I think innovation has become key. I heard this recently from somebody, where an egg, when broken from outside, is a food, and when broken from inside is a life. And I think we realized that ourselves, where, hey, we have to do a lot of culture shift from inside. Otherwise, we would be broken from outside, and that won't be good. Survival was key, and not just survival. I think thriving when we come out of this environment for an airline was key. So we have made some strategic investments, strategic changes, which I do believe in the next 3 to 5 years, we would probably be one of the 2 regional airlines in the United States. We've already seen 3 of our competitors shut the door. We believe that's going to continue happening over the next 2 years. But when it's all said and done, I think Republic and another competitor of ours probably would be the 2 airlines, at least from a regional space, that would be standing. And that's because of those innovative thinking and innovative mindset that we have at least fostered in the last 6 to 9 months in midst of the pandemic.
Yeah, and so advancing our leadership capability, I think really helping to promote that, and thinking beyond just IT, right? So starting to engage with the business and starting to really understand how it can be a strategic weapon for the business to compete in the market, especially when you're in a situation where it's a very tough industry and competitors are falling by the wayside. It's really important to keep up with that. That's great.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, Dave, what are you seeing from engagement with your business partners? How has this started to change for the better?
I think it's really good in the fact that there's this the partnership that is being formed, and it's putting stress on us and from an IT perspective in 2 ways. One of them, I always I bet a half a dozen times a day I've been using this hand analogy, is the business has to be the lead. We have to be that partner right there next to them in what they're doing and understanding and how we can do. If it gets the other way and IT is leading, it's not going to work well. And if the business gets too far out in front, it doesn't work well. It's when you really become that partner, and that partner means that if 2 people in business always agree, one's not necessary. So there has to be some healthy tension between the organization and what we need to do, and that's what we've been really working and to define how that partnership can work, that we can maintain this relationship. The other thing that's happening is it's forcing us in IT to step up and lead in areas that they're expecting an up and secure environment, keeping the lights on from an IT perspective. And it keeps saying no one's going to prioritize an upgrade of a system or platform or a server out there. That's up to us. And to lead both of those is a challenge for us. There's my Irish friends say there's a lot of leaders that want to sit back in the pocket and just say, well, business, tell us what you want us to do. That's an easy way. It's hard to lean in and say, let's play the game and let's figure out how we get this done. And oh, by the way, I got a hard enough job just keeping up with what's going on out in the world of IT, and then trying to match that up with what's going on in the business. So it's a good challenge, and I really like your diagram, because it really pushes us to be better leaders and be more towards a catalyst and having a vision and coaching versus just being that subject matter expert and sitting back in the pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So you think about that, sit in the pocket waiting for someone to ask for something. It's certainly expert mode, right? Dealing with the here and now and just waiting for requests to roll in. And that partnership mentality, certainly towards Catalyst, really trying to set us up for success and be partners and move along side by side. That's great. That's great.
I see our team members going, that's hard. That's hard. It's easy to sit back. So they're adjusting.
Yeah, the right things are often hard, right? So Tiffany, I want to come back around to you, and just sort of a question. I'm open, of course, for everyone's answers here, and maybe start with Tiffany. What's one big thing that you wish you'd done differently in the past 6-9 months while this has all been going on? We've all made mistakes. We've all, things haven't gone perfectly. What's something that stands out for you that you wish you had done differently?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be funny and not practical at all. I wish that I embraced that camera on mentality earlier on, because it makes such a difference when someone's looking back at me and it's a personal connection and it's not just a profile picture. Now, again, I started telecommuting in the 90s in my PJs all the time. If I showered before 5 p.m., I'd look good enough to go do something else, so I'd go do something else. So me not being on camera, me not being fit to be seen was a plus in my productivity column. It was hard to break out of that habit when everyone else turned on their cameras and I went, oh no. I put my glasses on, hi. I wish I would have really embraced that, look professional, be present, when everyone else started working from home.
Yeah, I can imagine that sort of feel. A lot of people just sort of wanted to have that same feel of, being ready and going to work. And so, getting up, showering, doing your hair and all that kind of stuff, just being ready like normal. So interesting. All right. Anyone else want to jump in on that one? Anything you wish you had done differently in the past 6-9 months? What's that thing that stands out for you?
I can go in. I think there were times specifically initially, Aaron, where I really fell into, moving away from being a catalyst leader to almost, going back to an expert, and started focusing on delivering the need of the hour at that point, early March, April. And I lost the sight on the organizational change management, specifically when it comes to training around the tool sets that we are now expected to use on a daily and an hourly basis. So we had a highest amount of adoption for Microsoft Teams. And just a typical IT guy, I started thinking about everybody knows how to use Teams, right? You just do this, you just did this, right? And I lost the sight of the business not having the training that they needed. Obviously, we did create it later on in the summer, but I wish I would have been a catalyst leader and thought about it ahead of time. So again, a mistake we learned from. I learned.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
You're definitely not alone in that one, Nirav. I mean, it was kind of feast or famine with the emergency du jour on the government side, as it went from getting everybody home, unemployment shooting up in that system, getting overtaxed, contact tracing, try to get branches and buildings back open. So I mean, you end up getting caught up back into that firefighting, and you lose the ability to realize that, okay, let me how do I strategically address this? How do I get myself back into that position, like you said, as catalyst, to be forward thinking. And here's the biggest piece, and I think the challenge that made it a little more difficult on me is how do I get the other business units to see that as well? Right. Everyone was so, especially with the volume of media attacks on government not responding and not engaging to support the pandemic. I mean, we were all in firefighting mode, and none of us had the wherewithal to help each other take that step back to say, okay, let's make sure we're staying where we need to be as leaders and as owners of these problems. And not letting ourselves get pulled into the weeds. Because the problems are still going to keep coming. You know what I mean? They're not going away anytime soon. And that's where I think I missed, like you said, Nirav, I missed an opportunity as well to kind of keep us focused and keep us moving forward. And lost a couple months in dealing with the day-to-day du jour issues versus getting back into, okay, let's talk about 6 months from now and our next fiscal year.
I can tell you mine was realizing how much the human element was there, and how difficult it was to do that from a remote standpoint, and how when you have a meeting with someone and you have the opportunity to just connect at a personal level that you don't get when you just click and boom, you're into the next meeting, you're into the next meeting. And realizing I need to take the time for my team to just pause and say, how you doing? And what's going on? What's going on with you? And connect at that human element to help the team as they're going through it with their life and their personal situation, and making that change. I was so focused on getting things done that we did, and so efficient. I was so focused on efficiency, I forgot effectiveness, and I didn't realize that I didn't have that tool that I had when I had people physically around me, that I could do that, and I had to find a way to do that. Wish I would have realized that earlier on.
And it's so important as leaders that we set that tone, set that culture, make sure we remember that. Great insight, Dave.
Yeah, certainly from an agile perspective, thinking about a lot of people first, and that's where, as we move from the expert to catalyst, that same kind of mentality is we're going to get better results, better outcomes, better everything if we sort of put the people element first. So it's good to recognize that. But of course, in the heat of the moment, sometimes we're so busy trying to solve the problem, stay alive, stay afloat. So, Mike, what was your biggest thing you wish you had done differently here in the last 6-9 months?
I think it goes back to the people part, knowing that everyone's life was changing. We didn't have the conversation quick enough about what is the value now we're bringing, what's the things that we want to do. And because once again, like everyone else, we were in firefighting mode. We were trying to figure out what every day was. We were trying to figure out on any given day who what everyone's feelings and dispositions were, trying to figure out. And that's not just in IT. I mean, the rest of the business, they were all in firefighting, trying to figure out how to operate any kind of an organization with all that's going on. So I think a lot of it was just, as we knew this was going to be at least a new norm for a period of time, is trying to figure out, well, what is it that we're trying to bring to the table? And so then how do we help our the people that we can affect get there? The level of stress that was throughout the entire organization was so high, and it was very visible. You could see it. There's frustration everywhere, and then it's how do you get it so you can continue to move forward and continue to grow from that aspect of it. I don't think we pivoted to talking about that until probably a little bit late. I mean, from where I was sitting at a global level, I started seeing the effects of COVID-19 in early January. Through some of my facilities across the globe. So knowing it was going to come here, knowing certain things were going to happen, not being able to share that and really observe what was happening and put it into action here in the U.S. before it came and smacked us in the back of the head.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the big benefits here, of course, of starting to think more towards this catalyst, starting to get to this to be more of your default behavior, is starting to learn from these things, right? So we all make mistakes. It's a matter of how fast we learn and what we do with it in the future. And so I know a lot of you have seen this model before and have been thinking about this for a while. And I just, encourage us to keep doing that. And, a lot of stuff that, comes along with Agile and Scrum about retrospectives, reflecting, and just trying to improve all the time. This is not a one-time situation. It's going to go on for a while. We're going to have to continue, dealing with it. So good to just recognize those challenges and just try to improve. So with that, I know we've got some.
Real quick, Aaron, the pandemic has probably shown the need for Agile leadership more than anything. I mean, it was, to maybe to Mike's point there is we weren't going to get all the answers we needed to make a very informed decision, but we had to do something. So
yeah, we're in a chaos situation. You just got to try something and see if it works, and then try the next thing sometimes, right? Until we learn enough to start making better decisions, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. So I know we have some questions from the audience as well, so I want to make some time for that. So I'm going to hand it back over to Doug to ask some of those questions.
Yeah, thanks, panelists. Our first question is from Josh Sturm over at Aces Power Marketing. He talks about a challenge that he has with employees resistant to change and resistant to the Agile method. Most of these are in the latter part of their career. Any tips for coaching them and getting them more open to change?
Show them how great it can be. Start small. I don't think wagile is a dirty word. Many of you probably do. But some of my favorite parts are the stand-ups. And if some people don't like the in-person stand-up every day, virtual stand-ups can be very powerful. Every day on a chat channel, give me your Agile stand-up 1, 2, 3, so we can all see what the showstoppers are. My second favorite part that I introduce Agile, isn't it great, to people are the predictive metrics that you could pull out every day, every week, every month. And you can see way early in the project, hey, things are off the rails. And if we don't correct it soon, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So selling them on your favorite parts of Agile has been the way I've handled that.
I think I'm going to double down on what Tracy said. I do believe that it is critical for leaders to understand where different generations are in their change processes. We are now managing a multi-generations team, and it is absolutely critical to understand where they are in their change process. Be empathetic towards them, help them understand the benefits, because all of them would definitely have complained about lack of business engagement in whatever projects they are. Delivering something that the business said, I never asked for this, what are you delivering? And help them understand that Agile is only going to avoid those frustrations, because they're going to have business engage more actively with them. They're going to get more solid requirements. They're going to be part of the process and not give them requirements and expect a result delivered 6 months from now exactly what they've asked for, right? So it's important for them to understand that it's going to be more beneficial, but obviously, like Tracy said, start slow, start small, and help them see the value. I think it's more about the value. And Agile definitely is not just processes. I think the biggest win there is the mindset shift, which takes time, which absolutely takes time. And I think I've seen leaders fail because they judge, somebody who is very willing to learn at the same scale as somebody who is at the tail end of their career and is going to take some long to learn. But eventually, everyone's heart is at the right place. And as leaders, we have to trust that.
Yeah, I think both what Tiffany and Nirav was right on. But the other thing I'd add is I think we also have to be sure that we don't assume that everyone is going to come along for the ride. I think at the end of the day, there are some people who's just are not going to want to change and just are not want to adopt that. As cool as we think it is, as transformational as we believe it is, and what we're trying to push from a strategy and a mindset standpoint, there's just some people, and it's not always a generational thing. Obviously, older generations, they've been doing things the same way for a little bit longer. Some of them have gotten really good at being adapt to change, and some of them not so much. And I think the other thing to go from there is what, and we did this too, is we just acknowledged not everyone's going to want to go down this path. Not everyone's going to feel good about this. But for me, it's making sure people are in a place where they're happy and doing things that they're passionate about. So if they don't want to be there, then let's find a good way to have them, transition somewhere else, rather than getting to a point where they're so pissed off that they can't work anymore, or they've started shutting down because the change management on their personal life is just too great.
Right.
Hey, Mike, I want to echo that. Just echo that real quick, because I think mine was going to take what Tiff and Rob said, put it together and say, you can't get someone to move. The comment was always, you can't get the troops to move until you understand where the troops are. And in this situation, understand where that person is and connect with them and understand what's it going to take, what are those issues. And sometimes you can help them get across the bridge. Sometimes you might want them to cross the bridge for other reasons, but you really got to understand, not dismiss them just because you label they got too much gray hair and they're not willing to change and label, but connect and understand and really lead and coach. And that coaching may be into another opportunity somewhere else, but that would be mine. Don't dismiss, engage.
I'll throw a comment here as well. So what I see, helping a lot of organizations through an agile transformation, sometimes those folks that have been there for a while, they can just sort of see what's actually going to happen. And they've seen other change management efforts that weren't supported fully by leadership fail. And they don't want to go through that. It's not about agile. It's about the lack of leadership support, for example, or other factors that they can just see sort of the writing on the wall, and they would rather not go through that kind of exercise if it's not going to be successful. And so I wouldn't dismiss their concerns, and you might not just associate with agile. And so to Dave's point, let's find out what the concerns are and talk about it, right? See where they are, and maybe they have something valid we should talk more about and make sure that we're going down the right path. So
I agree with that point, Aaron. Adoption from the top down is absolutely critical. Doesn't matter how much 1, 2, 5% better your development team gets at agile. If this guy up here writing the checks and setting the pace and doesn't believe in it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they'll crush it.
Good. Brian Knotts asked, how does the Catalyst leader balance their view on lasting success against the pressures of quarterly results, especially in public companies? Aaron, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can take a stab at that one. So yeah, I mean, think about the Catalyst leader, certainly looking visionary and long-term success, but yeah, trying to balance that with, hey, we've got quarterly numbers to meet for Wall Street and things like that. It can be, a difficult situation. So, it's something where I think you've got to build the capability within your organization to set it up for success. I mean, just going to, Catalyst mode from day one may not be the right answer. You've got to really understand how things work and make sure we don't drop any balls along the way of this, advancement in our development. And so we're as I mentioned, like oftentimes the achiever leader, we're achieving the goal, but not setting up lasting structures. And as you become the catalyst, that's what you're looking to do, is as you progress here, every step of the way, you're building lasting structures so that you can continually achieve quarterly results. And so it is a tough thing probably to balance, making that progression while still trying to become a catalyst, but making sure that you're still, taking care of the here and now. It is a difficult balancing act there. But of course, that's why public companies usually have a lot of people and just trying to help support each other too.
Aaron, one of the things we talk about is the daily work, and it can be whether it's quarterly results or the daily work. The analogy that's been effective in our world has been the whirlwind that exists, and if you don't take care of it, it'll eat you up, suck you in. And so what we say is we got to manage the whirlwind, and quarterly results are just part of the whirlwind. And any moment, any second you get that is out there that you're working on that lasting change, that's when you start to see, because that lasting change is actually going to have an impact on the whirlwind, and it moves you up that scale. And so that's just think of it as that's part of your job, and managing that but any second you get that you can work on something that is more towards that catalyst, you take it and you move, and that second can turn into minutes and hours and days, and that's when it starts to really get the snowball effect from it.
I mean, I think Aaron's hit the right word with that. Well, that was the progression. I mean, it's don't look at this as I got to stop firefighting today and start strategizing tomorrow. I mean, like Dave just said, is you have to, even if it's, you know, I'm gonna be at a 90-10% for a month and then try to get to an 80-20% for a month. I mean, you have to slowly make time to think about tomorrow instead of today. And at some point, you know, those two worlds do eventually collide, where now I am more focused on tomorrow because tomorrow's here as today. And we have a strategy that we've already laid out, and we have a team that's on board, and we're ready to keep pushing forward. So it takes a while to get there. It could take, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, it could take a few months or even a few years, but you have to do it. It's much more discipline on the executive or the leaders than it is on the team. Because the team is going to, I mean, and that's where the challenge, I think I see the biggest part of the challenge is as IT folks, as technicians. I mean, we always fall back on what we know and what we do well. And that is as being that expert, being that solution provider, being that fixer. And so the more we can, you know, literally look ourselves in the mirror to say, I don't want to be a fixer forever, which means I got to figure out what needs to be fixed 6 months from now. And I'm going to start making notes of that. And I'm going to bring it up with my management on their calls and make sure they're aware of it and not forgetting it. I'm going to put it on a poster or something on my wall that we're thinking about it, so that when it comes up and when I run, you know, I got tax season in April 15th in 2021. So what do I need to be worried about today to make sure that we can deliver that and support that at that time? And it takes a while with that progression, like Aaron said, to get to that point, but it's on us as executives.
And one thing that took me a while, Tracy, is coming from that scientific background. I argue scientifically. And sometimes the guys who I'm arguing with are business guys, and they don't, my ideas don't resonate to them. I read a great book called Unstuck at Last, and I stopped beating myself up for how I'm bad at crucial conversations with business guys, and perhaps I should find someone with those talents to partner with. I find someone with those talents, I give them my strategic scientific argument, and they use business words to really make the change that needs to be made.
Amen.
Really good.
I think, you know, what I would like to add here, just a quick, Doug, if you let me, it would be, I think there is always a balancing act. I don't believe an organization needs every single leader as a catalyst leader. I think you need an experts as well. You definitely need achievers as well, and you need catalysts as well. And there are times that the same leader might have to play all three roles at different times. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think the examples I would give you is a Blockbuster, a public company that really wanted to focus on quarterly results after quarterly results after quarterly results, and we know how that turned out. Or even Microsoft, for an example, during the Steve Ballmer days, wanted to so much compete with Apple and deliver the results to the streets quarter after quarter. We did realize what happened there as well. So I think there are definitely some good examples to learn from. It is a balancing act. There are definitely group of people, there are definitely group of leaders who absolutely have to play more of a catalyst role and be the captain of the ships or the captain of the plane. And then there are going to be achievers and the experts that are going to keep it running. And you need both of those. As a parting comment on that, I'll recommend two things. Is try to read two books. One is Exponential Organization. I read that around 6 years ago, a great book that talks about the speed of change. And the second would be The Infinite by Simon Sinek. I think try to read those two books, and if possible, have it shared with some of the executives on your organization.
I'll add one to that since you mentioned him. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, his book is really good too. It describes a lot of what we describe with catalyst leadership. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and I'll share. The Satya's book is. Were you asking for Satya's book?
Hit refresh. Yeah.
Yeah, hit refresh. And I will share a story on there, which Satya, by the way, had talked about, was when he took on the CEO of Microsoft, which was right after Steve Ballmer, which was so much about, hey, let's compete with Apple. His wife gave him a book called Mindset. And that is very similar to what Simon talks about in The Infinite Game, which is all about being a positive mindset and not being a negative mindset. And I think a lot of the things that Satya practiced at Microsoft following that came from the book mindset.
Yeah, growth mindset, getting to that catalyst leadership style. Yeah, a lot of alignment there.
One final question from the audience and we'll wrap up. Any tips for helping other team members get comfortable with cam on? You're the one who started it, Tiffany.
You can't pressure them. Show them your face, show them how much more personal that meeting can be, but don't make them feel bad for not turning their camera on. They'll appreciate that one-on-one touch and they'll be incented to do that for others over time.
Anyone else?
Encourage them. I say, hey, I miss your smile. Can I see your smile? I don't get to see your, and get them to encourage them to get it turned on. And it just takes a while to get used to it.
I think making sure you show up authentically. I mean, look how you look. Do what you're doing and get on there. I think as a leader, if you're doing that, then it makes it safe for them not to look, office ready if they're on the camera or. So I just think it's about making sure that it's about the person, not about what you look like.
My threshold for camera ready has come way down, and I am happy for it.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And sometimes you do have to be the only one with the camera on to show them that you're willing to do it as well. I agree. Panelists, thank you very much for spending your valuable time after work for this. Aaron, thank you so much for moderating.
Sure, thanks.
Jeff, thanks for inviting the CIO network.
Absolutely. Thank you to the panelists and thank you, Aaron.
Darcy, we appreciate Women in High Tech being involved in this. We love the group. You've got an event coming up, don't you?
We have an executive women's forum coming up next week. That'll be great. Is about shifting the focus and oh gosh, of course you put me on the spot about that event. It's an executive women's forum about racism for women in STEM. So it's a very important event. We continue to talk about diversity, and I know potentially y'all are probably like, oh, didn't we do this event? Yes, and we will continue to do events like this until things change. So yes, you can check that out on our website, womenandhightech.org, and please register. It is open to anyone to register, not just members.
Jeff, do you have upcoming events?
What was that, Doug?
Do you have upcoming events with the Indy CIO network?
Well, we have our evening dinner event that's sponsored by somebody called Expedient, I think. That on what is that? That's November 3rd. Is that correct, Doug?
Right. Yeah. If you're interested in that, CIOs who are listening, give me a ring, or IT leaders. We also have the normal IT leaders meeting coming up November 17th. That'll feature Mike Mead from CNO Financial, whose speaking title is "It's Not My Fault," and Ali Cudby from Your Iconic Brand talking about customer service. We really value the IT community. I think it's fantastic. We had 80 people on the meeting this evening. I encourage you to stay in contact with the people that you care about, whether they're in your organization or not. Keep the camera on and keep doing good work and keep making little changes to improve the quality of your work and your life. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.